Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday to you all, and thank you for joining us for this little bit of Aramaic as we continue to just take apart and investigate the verse in Matthew chapter 11, verse 29. Um, and we're doing this in sort of a reference and support to what we had been going through, and we'll continue to get back to in the Matthew chapter 5 in the Beatitudes of the Sermon on the Mount. And I don't know if you're feeling what I'm feeling, but the more that I look at this verse 29 and verse 30, the more I can see the support for what Jesus taught on the Sermon on the Mount. The more I feel that I understand his heart more, and that by just taking this little side path that I feel God directed us on into this verse is going to really help open our eyes and our understanding to what he was trying to convey in the Sermon on the Mount. And today's verse, or the words that we look at, just really emphasize that for me. Okay, last time we looked at, the word yoke, we looked at the word for learn, but these next ones really is where this all comes together. Um, in the English, it says, "For I am peaceable, and lowly in my heart, and you shall find repose in your soul." Again, it's a little different than the King James. What we want to do here is go to the analyze key, hot link, and that opens that up. And we're going to see that in these four translations that we have to look at, and I'm sure you're more familiar with the King James based upon the Greek text, the Lamsa, Murdoch, and Etheridge are all based upon the Peshitta, Syriac, Aramaic text. But you'll notice here that they pretty much have some differences. Etheridge would say, "For I am peaceful and lowly in my heart." Murdoch would say that I am gentle and subdued in my heart. Lamsa says I am genial and meek in my heart. And then, of course, the King James is I am meek and lowly in heart. So, somewhat different. I notice the King James says lowly in heart, where the other ones say in my heart. And so we just want to take a look and remember those key points here of the different words. And then let's see what it says at the end for you'll find repose, you'll find rest in your souls. So very similar there. So what we want to first look at is this word um, for rest. And here we see the hyperlink. We see the root word, which is the noon and the het here. And so it's translated cease, rest, put off, refresh. So quite a few different opportunities we have to look at that. So let's see what Jastro's Targumine has to say. And so we look up the word, which is the noon, yod, that and begins with an olive. You can see that there are different variations. We have to learn, that there are in the Aramaic, there's a lot of um, what do you call it, variances, and we can take a lot of liberties with searching because again, we're not trying to make a translation to sell to anyone. We're looking for what is this speaking to us, and how do we get to understand the nature and heart of God is really what we're trying to do. We want to know what he's like. We want to know what he's thinking of. And especially as it comes to when we get back to the Beatitudes, what was the main purpose for him speaking this to us? And so as we look at this word, we see here that it speaks of being soft or gentle, and even compares it to the application of when a rain is coming down, when there's a nice gentle rain. It's not a flood, it's not a mist. It's just one of those times when the farmers really like when a gentle rain comes because it doesn't wash the bare soil away. It doesn't cause so much runoff that the seeds are dislodged and pulled away, but it's a nice gentle, sometimes called a soaking rain, where everything goes and where it's supposed to. The rainwater is absorbed as it's falling. It's applied to the growth, and there's no destruction from the runoff. And I think that's just such a beautiful, beautiful metaphor and comparison to how Jesus is describing himself, as we see that it's really geared towards how he's going to be working in us and how our lives are going to be impacted by his presence and by being in his presence. This soft, gentle rain, again, many spiritual applications and connections on the Spirit of the Lord being like a rain falling down, and just can bring these all together. And then the other form of the word here, form two, is about being in ease or satisfaction, in bodily comfort, even in an unhappy marriage, is what it says. Kind of interesting. Um, so it's just a beautiful, beautiful understanding here of that word. So we look at that, then we go down to the word for humble, lowly. It's the mem and the kaf feet. So taking a look at that in the Jastros here, we see the word lowly uses the explanation sincere to everyone. Um, Bent down in a physical, but then also it's tied in with actually physicality of what can happen when a person is crushed or battered. Again, a beautiful um, unpacking that we can right away draw comparisons to the crucifixion scene, the um, Via Dolorosa, or the way of the Passion, of where and standing before Pilate's guards, he was crushed and battered and bruised. And Isaiah chapter 53 unpacks that in such a beautiful, beautiful way. But here, these are words used that Jesus is using to describe himself. Now, what we also see here that is very interesting is in translation, uh, you have to put things into good English. And so you kind of take liberties with the word order, you take liberties with the subject and the adjectives that go with it. But if I were to read this I'll use the term woodenly, which is just what the word order is and what it says. Here we have the word na. The aleph is silent in this case, being Aramaic. You'll see that up here in the uh, Estrangala script. There's a little line underneath the aleph that means you do not pronounce it. So this would be na. Now, this may be similar or reference some of you where Jesus uses the term I am that I am. This na is exactly following those same type of references, that when Jesus says, I am that I am, going back to uh, the burning bush, when the voice spoke from the burning bush and God speaks to Moses and tell them, yeah, uh, I am who I am. All of this is very strong reference. So Jesus is saying, I am, I'm sorry, let's go back up here. I am, and then there's this word for peace and rest. But you notice it has a dalet in front of it, and the dalet is not translated into English, but it really means for or of. So he's saying, I of rest, or I of um, the satisfaction, I of humbleness, I of rest. So he's again unpacks it. It's very poor English, but when you say it in such a way, it increases the emphasis. So Jesus is saying, I rest. I'm of rest. And then he goes on to say again here, and uh, I am of this word, which is the mem and the kaf feet, which is lowly. So I rest, I have rest, and I am lonely. I am or lowly, excuse me. So he's saying that I am these things, which is it's not just I am of, or I am thinking about it, or I am supportive of it, but he's saying that I am these things. This makes up his nature. This is a key factor in who he is. And I think that is just beautiful, beautiful phraseology, beautiful support for knowing the heart of God, of what comprises the heart of God. And then the next word here is be leve, uh, which is in his heart, or Be in his heart. And so it's just beautiful, beautiful again. And then we get down to the last part of this where it says, you shall find repose or rest in your soul. What you'll notice is this word is the same, that the nun yod het, here we see the nun yod het with the aleph at the end. So it's a repetition. And of course, translators in English don't like to repeat the same word again. They will pick different words that are synonyms that mean similar things. But in the Hebrew and Aramaic, they don't do that. And what I've learned is that repetition is intended to provide emphasis, and that is lost in the English. So here, there's a double emphasis that Jesus is using by using the same word twice in the same sentence, re-emphasizing who he is, that he is our rest, he's our completeness, he's our satisfaction, and that that's what his nature is, that's in his heart, and that same essence of who he is going to be transferred or imparted into our souls. And this just brings us all together in such a beautiful, beautiful way, and will help us as we go back next week to go back into the Beatitudes and take this thought of what Jesus's true intention is behind his purpose being on earth, his purpose for teaching, and his ultimate goal of where he wants to take us in our relationship with him. So pray that you are inspired by this. God bless you, and thank you so much again for listening to this study, and may you have a wonderful Sunday as you worship the Lord. Bye-bye.